Condueix l'acte Verónica Orozco, professional de la comunicació i antiga alumna de la Universitat Pompeu Fabra.
Bona tarda, buenas tardes, good afternoon. Benvinguts, graduats i graduades. Us saludem i us agraïm la vostra presència aquí avui. Saludem també els familiars i amics que us han acompanyat al campus, així com a les autoritats i professors aquí presents, que també hi sou, així com els familiars, amics i membres de la comunitat universitària. Hoy celebramos un momento muy especial, un final que a su vez es un inicio, una etapa que se cierra con esfuerzo, constancia y sobre todo aprendizaje. Today we are not only celebrating your academic achievements, but also the journey that brought you here, across countries, language, and disciplines. From now on, you carry with you all the knowledge, the friendships, and experiences of your time at the UPF, wherever life takes you next. Avui rebreu el diploma als estudiants dels Màsters, Criminologia i Execució Penal, Ciències, Jurídiques, Avançades i el Màster en European and Global Law. Ara sí, un fort aplaudiment per tots vosaltres. Bien. Antes de continuar, como habréis notado en esta introducción, contaros que vamos a hacer el acto en 3 idiomas, castellano, catalán e inglés, para que todos aquellos que en distintos idiomes nos podáis entender. Bé, ara sí, per començar, convido a pujar a l'escenari el doctor Ángel Rodrigo, professor del Departament de Dret de la UPF, perquè us adreci unes paraules. Si us plau, un fort aplaudiment per ell.
Buenas tardes, buena tarde, good afternoon. Bienvenidos en nombre del director del Departamento de Derecho a este acto de graduación. Bienvenidos estudiantes, familiares, profesores y demás personal de la Universitat Pompeu Fabra que colabora en la realización de este acto. Me gustaría compartir con todos ustedes unas reflexiones alrededor de la experiencia de cursar un máster, este máster, el máster que ustedes han cursado, en la comunidad universitaria creada en el seno de la UPF. Unas reflexiones que voy a hilvanar alrededor de la idea de que el máster es un viaje y un máster como un instrumento para crear una comunidad que se ha formado en un espacio público académico y en ese espacio público académico que es la Universidad Pompeu Fabra como una universidad internacional. Decía que el máster se puede considerar o lo podemos explicar como un viaje. El viaje real y figurado, para unos real, para otros solo figurado, para realizar vuestro máster ha llegado a buen puerto. No es el final, es obvio, sino que es un puerto intermedio, una estación de paso, una estación para continuar hacia adelante. Y esperamos que tanto el viaje real como el figurado, a través de los contenidos de vuestros estudios, os haya sido provechoso tanto académica como personalmente. Constantín Cavafis, un gran poeta griego, decía que era más importante, o al menos tan importante, el viaje como el destino, que lo más importante era el viaje, en este caso vuestro, la realización del máster. Y esperamos que ese viaje, que es el máster, os haya llenado de dones, de experiencias y de sabiduría. Esperamos que vuestra estancia en Barcelona, el máster que habéis cursado, haya significado eso, un viaje hacia la experiencia, hacia la sabiduría, hacia el conocimiento y también, ¿por qué no?, hacia unas mejores perspectivas profesionales. Decía también que el máster se puede considerar como un instrumento para construir una comunidad. ¿Qué quiero decir con que habéis construido a lo largo de este curso una comunidad? Quiero decir que a lo largo de estos meses Habéis compartido un lenguaje, unas prácticas, unas formas, habéis participado en discusiones científicas con reglas compartidas, habéis construido una red personal, profesional y social. El máster, en definitiva, ha contribuido a vuestra socialización en prácticas compartidas, a hacer networking, a reforzar vuestros estímulos e incentivos personales y profesionales. Ahora que este máster llega a este punto intermedio, me atrevo a hacer una sugerencia. Cuidad esta comunidad que habéis construido. Cuidadla porque puede seguir dándoos dones a lo largo de vuestra vida profesional. Decía también que ese máster, que se puede considerar un máster a través del cual habéis construido una comunidad, lo habéis construido en un espacio público académico que está abierto al conocimiento científico. Desde la Universidad Pompeu Fabra tenemos especial interés en que este espacio público académico sirva para exponer nuevas ideas, para debatir esas ideas, para compartirlas, para difundirlas, para criticarlas. Pretendemos, en definitiva, la cross-fertilization de las ideas y del conocimiento, la polinización de las ideas y del conocimiento. Y por ello, y con ello, tenemos la ambición de participar en la conversación científica global. Queremos contribuir a difundir y a crear conocimiento científico. Queremos contribuir, en definitiva, a la transferencia del conocimiento científico a la sociedad. Y este viaje, esta construcción de la comunidad en el espacio público académico, abierto al conocimiento científico, se ha realizado, o lo habéis realizado, en una universidad que quiere ser una universidad internacional. ¿Qué significa esto? ¿Qué quiero decir? Significa que la Universidad Pompeu Fabra es una universidad catalana que está abierta al mundo. Significa que es una universidad que, estando en Barcelona, que estando en Cataluña, está abierta al mundo. Significa que la Universidad Pompeu Fabra quiere ser una universidad europea en la que profesores y alumnos de diferentes orígenes compartan, fomenten y defiendan los valores europeos que se encuentran en el artículo 2 del Tratado de la Unión Europea. Respeto de la dignidad humana, libertad, democracia, igualdad, Estado de Derecho y respeto de los derechos humanos. Son los valores compartidos de nuestra sociedad europea, que se caracteriza por el pluralismo, la no discriminación, la tolerancia, la justicia, la solidaridad y la igualdad entre hombres y mujeres. Bienvenidos, por tanto, en nombre del Departamento de Derecho, a este acto de graduación. Good afternoon. Welcome on behalf of the head of law department of this graduation ceremony. Welcome students, family members, teachers and other UPF staff who are collaborating in carrying out the ceremony. I would like to share with all you three reflections on the fact that you have completed a master's degree in the university community created within the UPF. The first one is the Master as a journey. The real and figurative trip to carry out your Master has finished. It's not the end. It's an intermediate port. We hope that both the real and figurative journey through the contents of your studies has been useful to you. Konstantin Kavafis, the Greek poet, said that the journey was more important than the destination. Said that the most important thing is the journey, in your case, the realization of your master. And this journey has filled you with gifts, experience, and wisdom. We hope that your stay in Barcelona studying your master has been like this. The second reflection is about the master as to build a community. What does it mean that you have built a community? It means that you share a language, a practice and ways, and you have participated in scientific discussion with shared rules, that you have built a personal, social, and professional network. The Master, in short, has contributed to your socialization in shared practice, to networking, to reinforce your personal and professional incentives. Now, I would like to make that suggestion. Take care of this community. The first reflection is about the UPF, the Pompeu Fabra University, as a Catalan university open to the world. Open to the world as a hub of scientific knowledge. What does it mean? The UPF is a university that, being in Barcelona, in Catalonia, is open to the world. The UPF wants to be a public space in which new ideas are exposed, debated, shared, and disseminated. We want to try the cross-fertilization of ideas and knowledge. We want to participate in the global scientific conversation and contribute to spreading and creating scientific knowledge. Welcome, therefore, on behalf of the Department of Law, to this graduation ceremony. Good afternoon.
Moltes gràcies per aquestes paraules. Bé, tot seguit tenim el privilegi d'escoltar la lliçó de graduació que enguany va a càrrec del professor Wolf-Georg Ringe. Wolf-Georg Ringe is a director of the Institute of Law and Economics at the University of Hamburg and visiting professor at the University of Oxford, Faculty of Law. His research focuses on questions of corporate law, capital markets, and financial regulation from an interdisciplinary and comparative perspective. He is a research member with the European Corporate Governance Institute at Brussels, fellow at the European Banking Institute at Frankfurt, and co-editor of the Journal of Financial Regulation. As visiting professor, he regularly teaches at leading academic institutions in North America, Europe, and Asia. He offers us today a reflection entitled Investor-Led Sustainability in Capital Markets. Professor Ringe, the stage is yours. A big round of applause for him, please.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I skipped the Catalan and I skipped the Spanish. Unfortunately, I go right into English, and I hope that's okay. My name is Georg Ringe, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you tonight. There is a modern saying, when you want to know where your home is, there is a modern saying that is, your home is where your mobile phone connects automatically to Wi-Fi. So if I give you one piece of advice, please stay in touch with Pompeu Fabra. Try to make sure that your Wi-Fi connection works when you come here, and you'll always have a home in Barcelona. That's what I'm convinced of. But I have a topic that a more serious topic that I want to discuss with you, and that is sustainability, a topic which I hope connects and determines us all, and the question of how capital markets in a global world, in a challenging world, no doubt these days, can contribute to achieving sustainability goals. I'll spend a few moments explaining what I mean, but the slides don't work. So could anybody just help me, please? Oh, no, they seem to. Okay, great. There's something weird here. Okay, anyhow. Right, so the topic is on capital markets, and legal scholars and governments are, of course, seeing this opportunity of using the power of capital markets to support the transition and the achievement of climate goals, and there are lots of legal discussions on how to ideally get there. This is what this talk is about. So at the moment, there are lots of efforts to prescribe sustainability criteria in a lot of detail, and lawmakers around the world are really busy with finding the best way of how to do it. I want to present you an alternative way here tonight, namely to use the power of investors to support the transition. I need somehow, something is magical about this device here. Okay, now it's going too far. So my talk is about an alternative, that is to say, use the power of the institutional investors that are active on the global market, use the supply and the demand and try to match it with particular goals that the society wants to achieve. And I will point out in particular that there is a growing trend where institutional investors on a global market are working together, are building coalitions to achieve those goals. And if you're following that trend, then at most the law should maybe do a more supportive, a more facilitative job in achieving these goals. That's the basic idea. And let me explain a little bit more in detail what I mean. So we all know that we all need to, at least in this part of the world, we're all convinced that we do need to do something to achieve sustainability, to tackle climate change, and that the law is a helper in this regard, and that the market is a helper in this regard. It really started with the United Nations PRI, the Principles of Responsible Investment. That was a subunit that was created of the United Nations back in 2006. And that institution had the genius idea of, we cannot get that alone. We need the power of private money, right? We cannot just use traditional law and prescribe certain things, and this is allowed what you can't do, and this is how much you can pollute the atmosphere every year and so forth. That will not get us there, right? We need to think smarter. We need to use global money streams. And the money should go into those firms that are ambitious in achieving particular climate goals. And you know, if you think in that way, if you use the power of money of private actors on the market, then this will be a much greater effect than there's traditional, public-led enforcement with legal style of the 19th century. So this idea really took off since 2006, has gained support in the Paris Agreement, and was taken to the streets in the Fridays for Future movement, which are still a faint memory maybe to some, and became even more urgent, I think, during the COVID pandemic. So that today the question really is only how do we get there, not whether we really get there. So the question for us is how can we build such a market where the market really works in an ideal way? The financial market has responded, and has taken up the challenge, and there are lots of actors out there that are taking this job very seriously, out of their own motivation, without anybody forcing them. They use different metrics and different initiatives to go into this direction. I'm just presenting you a couple of ideas here. One of them is the famous Big Three. The Big Three institutional investors, the American asset managers, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Enormous pools of money that collect trillions of dollars together. And they are basically invested today in almost every single public company around the globe. They don't have huge stakes, but they have small stakes in all of these companies. And they run campaigns for all their target firms. So, for example, on climate, on diversity, on racial justice, and important things that matter to a society, because they believe that this will be beneficial to their portfolio that they are holding. Other institutional investors are the more traditional guys that you might know, pension funds, right, that administer lots of pension money one day, or mutual fund investment funds, that plain vanilla stuff where you can invest in. These are now also using ESG criteria, environmental, social, and governance targets, to use particular strategies for investing. Again, this is a dramatic trend which was different 10 or 20 years ago. And at the most extreme end of the spectrum, you have shareholder activists. What are these? These are guys like hedge funds, aggressive players on the market, they have a very different business model. They invest small blocks of shares into companies, and then they force the company to change its business structure, to, for example, spin off certain entities, to change the management. And they are now increasingly also targeting climate change goals, for example. They're forcing particular companies to be more ambitious about climate targets than the company was itself. And there was quite a famous campaign of a tiny hedge fund with the name of Engine Number One, which invested into ExxonMobil, one of those huge oil companies, right, that everybody knows, and they forced them to become more ambitious about the transition to different energy methods. So these are all examples to see what is happening in the market already now, right, without anybody forcing them. And the only problem then for us, the only problem for me, is to make this machine work. And now it left me completely. Maybe I should just do it without any slides, but can maybe somebody help me here from the start? Again. So the question is then, this is what I was looking for at the bottom, of whether the market can achieve all of this itself, right? Or whether we need legal help to get there. Okay, just give me 10 minutes, yeah. 3 reasons why I am relatively optimistic. Point 1 is there is a need from the supply side. So the supply side, I mean those financial market players that offer financial products that are supporting environmental or climate concerns, for example. And for them, this is super interesting for a very simple reason. This is attractive for them financially speaking. In particular, investment funds that are in a constant competition and that offer products very low prices at the moment, like index funds, for example. For them, this is a method to overcome the low fees dilemma, that they offer cheaper and cheaper and cheaper investment products, which is great for consumers, right? But for them, this is an attractive alternative to offer a climate-friendly investment fund, for example, which charges much higher fees than alternative investment funds. So I give you an example here at the end of the slide. BlackRock's iShares Global Clean Energy ETF. An ETF is an exchange-traded fund. So that's a particular market segment which is put together for clean energy. And for this fund, they charge 40 basis points more than for the plain vanilla Standard & Poor's ETF, right? So for them, this is an attractive possibility. Note that you need to be careful with a particular problem that has become known as greenwashing. Maybe everybody has heard the term already, right? The risk that, of course, everybody says that, yes, we are super green. So this is an issue that I will come back to. But otherwise, everybody, right, every fund manager could simply say, oh, yeah, we're offering a very green fund, right? There needs to be somebody who is actually checking and monitoring that what they're saying really is true. The second point comes from the demand side, right? So you and all of us, basically, people who invest in this stuff. And here we see a super interesting research also from sociology, for example, who shows that show really a shift in the preferences in the so-called millennials. And I see lots of millennials in this room. So ask yourself whether this is true. Apparently, researchers found out that, more and more of your age cohort are now really investing on stock markets with a particularly different investment goal. It's no longer just making money, making profit, but more and more people apparently want to do good, want to ideally match particular societal goals with, of course, everybody likes to have high returns, but ideally we'd like to match them, right, with doing something useful. So it's no longer just the bad profit-motivated investor, but there is an increasing trend, to improve society, and 75% call themselves philanthropists or engage in impact investing. These are really sensational numbers. Of course, these are all surveys, and they might be a little exaggerated, but still, I think there is a clear trend that investment preferences are changing. And of course, if that trend continues, right, then there's of course also a growing pressure on the institutional investors that I mentioned before to offer these products, right? So the more you guys are buying the stuff and are asking for it, the more attractive it becomes for the institutional investors to offer these products in the first place. Now, this is where the two dimensions come together. And yay. Yeah, maybe I should just give up here. And the third point, yes, that I wanted to mention that's happening is increasing team building that is going on in the investment community. Right? So what we're seeing in the market is that there are some people, some investment funds like these activist hedge funds who are running a campaign. I mentioned already the campaign on ExxonMobil, for example. Yeah, so they're seeing ExxonMobil is still making a lot of money with good old oil and good old, old style energy. And this traditional small hedge fund goes in and forces this oil giant to change its policy, right? To become more ambitious and to impose a greater speed in changing to different type of energy generation. Yeah. And of course, they cannot do this just by themselves. The small, tiny hedge fund just has 0.2% of the shares, for example. They need the support from other institutional investors. Yeah? And so this is what we're seeing in the market. So they partner up, they build a coalition between different players, all the different institutions that I met at the beginning, activists, pension funds, investment funds, and so forth, right? They all come together. And of course, that is a good development because they are basically controlling themselves. Nobody can really run the show by themselves. They need to have a convincing story, convincing vision for this company in order to convince other players to support that campaign. Yeah. And I have a few examples on the next slide that doesn't show up. Here we are. I mentioned engine number one, which took on Exxon, and they partnered with a number of pension funds. For example, Màsters, it's a big California pension fund. Interestingly, the Church of England was also supporting their campaign. CalPERS, New York, and a couple of other players, right? But also, ultimately, very importantly, they received support from BlackRock and Vanguard as well. I don't want to go through all of these examples. Maybe in Spain, quite interesting, on the top right-hand side, Aena, the airport operator in Spain, right, was becoming also target of a campaign to impose a sort of say on climate campaign. Which means that shareholders want to have a say on the climate targets of the company that they're investing in. And the hedge fund that was pushing this campaign, TCI, I mentioned here, has the nice name. TCI stands for the Children's Investment Fund. Sounds beautiful. In reality, it's one of the most aggressive hedge funds in the world. And they used to be the evil capitalist players. They have now really discovered that, they hope that these measures will be profit-making in the long run. I don't believe that these still are capitalist players, these investors. They haven't given up their profit goals, but they have understood that matching their portfolio with certain long-term orientation goals, right, will ultimately be more sustainable and probably also be more profitable in the long run. Okay. Short break. Keep on chatting while I'm pressing. Yes. Now I'm back here. Those examples that I had on the previous slide were ad hoc coalitions, right, where you have one target and then you form a coalition to put pressure on these targets. What's happening now is that we see institutionalized platforms where they all come together. So, for example, Climate Change 100+ is a massive online platform where all of these institutional investors are connected and communicate with one another. And they have a portfolio of about 54 trillion assets under management combined, right? That is a massive force. Or the United Nations operates its own collaboration platform, and lots of other small things are popping up. So what they have in common is that they are a fantastic network to share information about particular targets. They typically have then one lead investor who singles out a particular target, gets the others to support them, and they can then share cost and share information, which of course decreases dramatically the cost of these campaigns that I was talking about. So if you've been following me, polite as you are, until this point, then you're wondering, so what does this all have to do with law? After all, you're all law students. And my point was until here to see and to show to you what is happening in the market without any government interference, without any government pressure, right? There is a lot happening out of self-interested motivation. And the question is now, what is then the lesson for the law, for regulation? I think one thing we can learn, a super prescriptive force, that forces the market to act, is probably not necessary because there's already such a dynamic movement going on. At most, what we need to do is to support the movement and tackle the problems that are coming up along the way. For example, greenwashing that I already mentioned. For example, addressing the problem of the cost of collaboration in the coalitions that I was talking about. And so the role for the law is then, in my view, to support this ecosystem that is developing and that is emerging as we speak. One example of what the law can do is, this is an example from the American ERISA retirement plan framework. Under the first Trump administration, there was a lot of legal confusion and uncertainty of whether these vast amounts of pension money, of public employees in the US, whether they could be invested using those, for example, those climate target metrics, right? Whether that was consistent with the legal position of the fiduciary that was responsible for investing those monies. And the Biden administration has helpfully clarified that, yes, it's legally okay to do so. The beauty of this approach is not to force the pension fund money to be invested using these criteria, but just explaining that legally that would be okay, right? It would be consistent with your job as a trustee, as somebody who is responsible for this. By the way, just wait and see what Trump does about this now that he's back, right? But so far, to my knowledge, he hasn't touched that yet again, right? But wait and see. Second example of what the law can do. Let's go and have a cigarette in between. Yes, it's now coming. Remove barriers for cooperation. Yeah. So I've already mentioned that a lot depends on whether you allow these different players on the market to collaborate, to work together. And for the lawyers who are experts in capital market, they know this. There is one problem in particular in the European context, which is known as acting in concert, a rule which makes it hard, to put it into simple words, right, to collaborate, because you might have to count your shares together under transparency rules, under takeover rules, and so forth, right? You suddenly count together. So if you build a coalition of different institutional investors and suddenly you add all the shares together, you might run into high and very costly transparency requirements, or even might have to do a mandatory takeover bid for particular target companies that you're invested in. And again, this would be something where the law could help in facilitating sustainability-oriented campaigns. ESMA, the European Securities and Markets Authority, basically the watchdog over securities markets in Europe, has proposed, and I think this is a very good idea, to expand its so-called white list. They have a white list of innocent activities, so those activities which are de facto exempt from all of these disclosure and takeover requirements. And it would be very nice if they had included in that list an explicit reference to sustainability-oriented activities. Now, that would greatly help in this context. And the third job on my wish list of things that can be done and that should be done is to address the greenwashing problem that I already mentioned before, right? So what really is green? What really is brown? What is olive green? What is somewhere in between? So we need, in other words, we need to know what we're talking about. Otherwise, we will be comparing apples and pears. Yeah. And in this field, there is a lot happening. You could even say too much happening, because there are a million different international standards that are trying to, to categorize those different investment targets. All these wonderful acronyms here, SASB and GRI, and you can forget about them immediately. It's just to show you there are different bodies, international bodies, that are trying to define what counts as sustainable and what is to be classified how and what way to make those things comparable. The United States hasn't really adopted one under the Biden administration, and now it looks even less likely, to put it mildly, that they will act upon this. This is, by the way, where Europe is the market leader, the global leader in this field, and they have adopted a number of legal instruments to really try to bring legal force to those sustainability-oriented standards. The most well-known example is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, basically requiring big listed companies in Europe to publish and to disclose data on, how green and what they are doing, how their activities, what the emissions are, and so forth, so that investors, that I talked about, know what they are investing into. And it's becoming increasingly important for investors to know, and it becomes, a financial asset, an important investment consideration for them to look at. And the taxonomy regulation might also be known to some. Taxonomy is really trying to classify the entire segment of different industries depending on scores. And so this is all trying to overcome the information problem that we are having and trying to improve transparency in this field. Again, a helpful tool, but at the moment we are suffering from the problem that we have this alphabet soup and that we are really having a jungle of international regular standards, global standards, national standards, and a lot of confusion. Right? What we ideally would have to do would be to foster a global standard. Unfortunately, we don't have a global government. I mean, we don't have a world government or anything like this which could decide those things for the whole planet. We have to live in this imperfect world, and they take some comfort from the fact that there is now an international initiative which is known as the International Sustainability Standards Board, which will come up in a few hours on the slide, which is really trying to define this and build a global standard. Here we are. This is the International Sustainability Standards Board, which is located in Frankfurt now, and they are now really trying to develop global standards, not just EU standards, but standards for the world as a whole. Okay. What else? One other problem that I want to briefly mention is, of course, politics, right? And this approach of creating transparency, creating an equal standard of consensus, of scientifically based standard of sustainability sounds good, but politics is frequently in the way. You might remember that a couple of years ago there was a big, legal discussion around Europe on, for example, whether nuclear energy would count as sustainable or not. And the conflict was particularly acute between Germany and France, of course explainable by the fact that Germany had decided to exit from nuclear energy already years ago, and of course thought this is a terrible idea. And France is quite the opposite, heavily investing into nuclear energy and building new nuclear power stations, right? So you see that the decision of what counts as sustainable and what doesn't is ultimately also a political and also an economic decision. And the problem, of course, is with those political conflicts, the credibility of these standards might suffer, right, to put it very bluntly. And so they found a typical Brussels compromise to say, oh, yes, nuclear energy and natural gas. I mean, natural gas was the thing that Germany wanted to have included, right? So they both count as sustainable now, right? Wonderful. That's the perfect solution that Brussels is known for. And of course, these things are not super helpful for the target. The other problem, of course, is Trump 2.0. He has, as you can imagine, the big mission to crack down on everything that's ESG. Actually, it's nothing brand new because the Republican states within the United States have for a long time already forced their own investor communities to not go down the route of investing using ESG criteria, not using, it's a long discussion, which we can discuss over a drink later on if you like. But of course, this is a threat to the entire movement and the community, even though I was recently in the States, and I was talking to people about this question, what's happening now, and the political backlash against all of this. And they said to me, yes, the term ESG is completely dead. So they said to me, don't use it anymore, just use a different name. Just call it something different, because the term ESG is so politically controversial that you will simply not convince anybody with it. But if you find a smart new name, and I invite everybody to think about an alternative, maybe something like long-term value creation or something, I don't know what, right? Then, that might be the next new thing, and you could just continue doing what you're doing under just a different label, right? This is sometimes how people are. They're just very ideological. But ultimately, I'm convinced that it becomes clear that those things long-term will also be the more profitable alternatives, right? So the investor community will find ways of continuing on that path. Right. So let me press this button. And the last problem in this story that I want to present is a problem that has become known under the name of brown spinning. Yeah, I've done some research on this myself. So a byproduct, a conflict that wasn't quite clear from the beginning, is that if you force more and more companies in Europe to disclose how climate friendly they are, there's an incentive to simply spin out some very brown and dirty assets, right? So if you are, imagine you are in an old energy company that is still using and polluting lots of things every day, then you're being forced to disclose how green you are. A very quick and easy fix would be to sell a brown subsidiary, which is still using coal and old stuff thing, to somebody else, maybe in a different country, who is not subject to the same disclosure requirements, or maybe to small private companies that are also not subject to the same disclosure requirements. So the prime problem is that the legal framework on disclosure in Europe is really just focusing on publicly listed companies and some large companies as well, but it basically is limited to a part of the market, which has the weird consequence that some companies are now really just trying to sell brown stuff on to others, and then overnight, such a miracle, right? They are much greener, at least they appear much greener. And the problem, of course, is that the world hasn't really become any better by this arbitrage strategy. So it's like an embellishment of your green performance and gives wrong impressions. So this is a side effect of the framework, I think, that we still have to tackle with. Good, so I'm coming to the end, if PowerPoint lets me, and maybe also can do this without final slides. So summing up, I hope I have convinced you that this market was and still is a very dynamic force. It's a beautiful example, I think, where market pressure is already there. Market community sees the opportunities, and I think the law is well advised to not overregulate this market, to really go carefully and support market forces where they exist, right? Tackle the problems that I have talked about, like greenwashing, like the collaboration problem, like the brown spinning problem. So that's definitely something that we have to think about. But I want to now, beautiful timing, I want to end with a positive outlook, because the power and the influence of investors is there, and we just need to use it. And I think, to be quite honest, this is a force for the good if we use it well and if we steer it well. I wish you all the best. Keep those things in mind, and all the best for your lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your words, Wolf George Ringe. Ara sí, els veritables protagonistes d'aquest acte prenen la paraula i sentirem les veus d'alguns representants dels màsters, que ens compartiran una mirada personal i també col·lectiva d'aquesta experiència universitària que ha estat per tots vosaltres aquí a la universitat. Doncs comença Germán Bautista Jiménez, del Màster en Criminologia i Execució Penal. Un fort aplaudiment per ell.
Buenas tardes a todos y todas. Hoy nos encontramos acá para concluir formalmente una etapa. ¿Escucha? Ahí, ¿no? Hola, hola. Hoy nos encontramos acá para concluir formalmente una etapa que cada uno atravesó con trayectorias y objetivos distintos. En mi caso, tener la posibilidad de tomar la palabra en representación de todos mis compañeros es un honor y también una oportunidad para señalar brevemente lo que implicó este ciclo, tanto a nivel personal como colectivo. El máster fue, sin dudas, un espacio valioso para intercambiar perspectivas y discutir críticamente sobre modelos criminológicos, sociales y políticos. Pero también fue, en muchos casos, una experiencia más allá de lo académico, la posibilidad de conocer nuevos lugares, personas y formas de pensar. En mi caso, implicó salir de mi país, de mis rutinas y de mi zona de confort, para poner a prueba no solamente conocimientos previos, sino también formas de mirar el mundo. Creo que estos cambios, junto con la acogida que nos dieron Barcelona y esta universidad, fueron fundamentales en este proceso de aprendizaje a nivel humano. Por otra parte, más allá de los contenidos específicos, considero que uno de los mayores aportes de este programa formativo fue brindarnos herramientas para pensar con mayor responsabilidad y analizar con sentido crítico los problemas sociales que hoy requieren nuestra intervención. Es que no basta con saberse de memoria teorías ni dominar lenguajes técnicos. Considero que el estudio solo adquiere sentido cuando se conecta con el contexto, cuando sirve para cuestionar lo establecido y pensar alternativas que puedan traducirse en cambios concretos, por pequeños que estos sean. En última instancia, lo que hacemos con todo este conocimiento adquirido es lo que realmente importa. Así, entiendo que la excelencia académica, a la que apunta este máster, no debería limitarse únicamente a acumular saberes, obtener buenas notas o alcanzar distinciones individuales. Esa excelencia exige también conciencia crítica, compromiso ético y una comprensión clara del lugar que ocupamos como personas formadas en instituciones de prestigio y partícipes de una sociedad. Por eso, estoy convencido que para lograrla debemos comprometernos con nuestro entorno, trabajando día a día desde el lugar que nos toque para idear un futuro más justo y no simplemente haciendo lo necesario para cumplir en un plano individual. Finalmente, quiero agradecer a quienes me acompañaron en este proceso, a los docentes del máster por su trabajo y dedicación, a mi tutor, Daniel Barona, por su guía y apoyo, a mis compañeros y compañeras con quienes compartimos no solo las clases, sino también momentos fuera del aula, sobre todo cuando necesitábamos sentirnos entendidos y un poco más cerca de casa. Y también a mi familia, que desde la distancia me acompañó durante todo este recorrido, en especial a mis abuelos, sin cuyo apoyo no hubiera podido estar hoy acá. Pero no puedo terminar sin hacer una mención que considero necesaria. Si hoy estoy aquí, es también gracias a la educación pública y gratuita de excelencia que recibí en mi país, Argentina. Esa formación fue la base fundamental que me permitió acceder a este y a otros espacios. Defender siempre esta educación no es un gesto nostálgico ni un mero acto de gratitud, es una posición política, porque estudiar no debería ser un privilegio, sino una posibilidad real para cualquiera que quiera hacerlo. Como dijo José Ingenieros, filósofo y criminólogo argentino, estudiante y profesor de la Universidad de Buenos Aires, sin ideales sería inconcebible el progreso. Por eso, espero que el conocimiento que obtuvimos no sea un fin en sí mismo, sino una herramienta para seguir idealizando, pensando y transformando nuestro futuro, de forma crítica y con sensibilidad social. Esa, quizás, sea nuestra mayor forma de lograr esa excelencia académica. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos en este acto y felicitaciones a mis compañeras y compañeras por el esfuerzo realizado.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. A continuación es el turno de Nicole Elfernand del Màster en Ciències Jurídiques Avançades. Un fort aplaudiment per ella.
Buenas tardes a todas y todos, profesoras, profesores, compañeras, compañeros, familiares, amigos y amigas. Es un verdadero honor estar aquí hoy tomando la palabra en representación del Máster en Ciencias Jurídicas Avanzadas, generación 2024-2025. Sin duda, este ha sido un año intenso y profundamente enriquecedor. Tuvimos la suerte de compartir este camino con personas provenientes de distintos países, trayectorias y experiencias. Esa diversidad, personal, profesional y jurídica, no solo hizo más interesantes nuestras sesiones de clase, sino que nos permitió crecer, ampliar la mirada y descubrir otras formas de entender y aplicar el derecho. Fue un lujo aprender tanto dentro como fuera de las aulas, desde sistemas jurídicos distintos hasta pequeñas diferencias culturales que nos hicieron pensar más allá de lo conocido. Fue en ese proceso donde se formó un grupo humano cercano, amable y generoso, que convirtió este máster en algo más que una experiencia académica. Personas con las que fue un gusto compartir clases, cafés, fiestas, una que otra clara o caña, viajes y debates apasionados. Gracias a todas y todas por la paciencia con nuestras distintas formas de hablar el derecho y de hablar en general. Creo que puedo afirmar con seguridad que al menos en este grupo el chileno ya es lengua cooficial. Queremos agradecer especialmente a nuestro profesorado por su profesionalismo, cercanía y alto nivel académico. Ha sido un privilegio contar con docentes de gran trayectoria, siempre actualizados y comprometidos con la excelencia en la enseñanza. Gracias a ellos, asistir a clases no solo fue una instancia de aprendizaje, sino también un verdadero agrado. Este máster nos sacó de nuestra zona de confort de trabajo. Nos invitó a volver a analizar críticamente, a cuestionar cada palabra, cada solución, cada ley, a comparar sistemas jurídicos, imaginar nuevas propuestas, proponer mejoras, a trabajar en equipos diversos, transversales, de personas con diferentes nacionalidades, con miradas distintas, pero complementarias. Todo ese aprendizaje nos lo llevamos con nosotros, como base para seguir creciendo y ser mejores profesionales. Pero nos llevamos no solo conocimientos, lecturas y tantas directivas, sino también conversaciones que nos hicieron pensar distinto, amistades que cruzan fronteras y una red que estoy segura seguirá creciendo con el tiempo. Nos espera continuar nuestro camino profesional diverso, pero ahora compartimos una base común, la voluntad de aportar, desde el derecho a construir sociedades más justas, más críticas y más humanas. Porque si algo nos deja este máster, más allá del contenido jurídico, es la certeza de que el derecho, como la vida, se enriquece en la diversidad. Aprendimos que no hay una sola forma de ver las cosas, que las diferencias culturales no nos separan, sino que nos complementan, que la versatilidad es una fortaleza y que ser migrante, lejos de restar, aporta. Ser extranjera o extranjero te desafía, te transforma y también te enseña. Gracias Barcelona por habernos dado hogar a todos y a todas este año. Algunas se quedan, otros regresamos a nuestros países, pero todos nos llevamos algo valioso. Ojalá sepamos aplicar en el futuro estas enseñanzas, no solo en nuestros trabajos, sino también en la forma que habitamos el mundo. Hoy no es solo una despedida, es también un punto de partida. Lo bueno es que ahora tenemos más países que visitar y más casas donde llegar. Felicitaciones a todos mis compañeros y compañeras. Muchas gracias.
Preciosas y emotivas palabras. Well, so finally, Alfred Benedict Dislate from the Master's degree in European and Global Law. A big round of applause for him.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, congratulations to all of us here today. We made it. And congratulations as well to all our family and loved ones who are joining us here today. Dear fellow graduates, finally here we are. We are officially marking the end of our master, and we are celebrating our making it through. Cliché as it may sound, but time really does go by fast. The 23rd of September 2024 felt like yesterday. We were outside Alberto Casamilla having our coffee and some snacks, waiting for the orientation to start, not knowing what the next 9 or 10 months will bring. We didn't know each other, and we didn't know anything about each other, really. We didn't know how things would go. We didn't know how systems worked. We were a bit reserved, a bit timid, not knowing how to act with each other. We were nervous as classes started, but over time, we got the hang of things. We came to classes more confidently. We started to hang out more and more. And after a while, after numerous classes, exams, papers, presentations, and a master thesis, we're all here, gathered in this auditorium to graduate. A lot of us may or may not know what's next, but one of the many realizations I had during our time here is that while we sometimes face uncertainty, like at the beginning of our master, we will always figure it out, and we will thrive. Dear friends, if you think about it, we came from different countries, different cultures, speak different languages. We have different personalities, different interests and views on life. But nevertheless, we could all sit in Lovea Negra, make jokes, and laugh about things. We can be exposed to new people, new things, new environments, and we can always adapt and make the most of every situation. If we take this openness, this attitude of always saying yes to new things, we will make it anywhere, wherever we go. For sure, we will miss our time here. We will miss our little routines, our day-to-day lives for the past months, our memories together. We will miss all of these things. But we bring all of these with us in the next phase of our lives. We carry with us the friendships that we've made here. And my hope is that 10 or maybe even 20 years from now, when we're successful in our respective careers, when we look back and remember the time we spent here in Barcelona with these fun, random people from around the world who have become our friends. It brings a smile to our faces, because if we can smile about a nice memory many, many years after, we can say it was definitely worth it. Lastly, we carry with us today gratitude. On behalf of the Masters in European and Global Law Batch 2025, I would like to thank the university, our professors, our families, and loved ones for the immeasurable love and support given to us. This happy moment is yours as much as it is ours. Once again, congratulations to all of us, and let's look forward to the future with openness, courage, excitement, and hope. Maraming salamat and moltes gracias.
Gracias Germán, Nicole y Alfred por vuestras palabras. So now, the moment you have been waiting for, the awarding of the commemorative diplomas to graduates of the class 2025 of the Master's degree from the Law Department. Por este motivo, pedimos que suban al escenario la doctora Elena Larrauri, coordinadora del Máster en Criminología y Ejecución Penal, el doctor Joan Solanes Mullor, coordinador del Máster Avanzado en Ciències Jurídiques, y la doctora Lila Melón, coordinadora del Màster in European and Global Law. Bé, i ara que tenim a les autoritats presents a l'escenari, començarem pels graduats i graduades del Màster en Criminologia i Execució Penal. Així que cridem a l'escenari, si us plau, que pugin. Andrea Amores Veintimilla. Un fort aplaudiment per ella. Marta Anguix Sánchez. Míriam Balsei Soto. Aquests aplaudiments els volem sentir més, que l'aula està plena, Francisca Canay Garcia. Catherine Cocho Hernández. Alicia Coibatallé Cabrera. Núria de Dalmau Hernández. Palau Andrea Diradourian. Laura Isabel García Paz. Germán Bautista Jiménez. Emma González Rodelas. Facundo Pablo Guido. Thais Iravedra Vilechenu. Miriam Kilal Hamid. Daniel Lamarca Olivero. Violeta Rayen León Cifuentes. Karl Maher Gentelmann. Jocelyn Andrea Montalvo Canales. Sofía Abril Olivera Mule. Paula Palmer Preto. Duna Pascual March. Andrés David Pastrana Muñoz. Aramizara Porchelli Domínguez. María Agustina Sanz Garea. Y Carla Silvestre Miralpeix. Y ahora sí, para todos los graduados y graduadas que han subido al escenario, un fuerte aplauso para ellos. Continuamos ahora con los graduados y graduadas del Máster Avanzado en Ciencias Jurídicas. Y ya están preparados para recoger su diploma. Ana Javiera Araya Quezada, un fuerte aplauso. Antonia Balasei Cobo. Christopher Brands Pessoa. Julia Datskibis. Nicole Francisca Elferán Batier. Paulina Espinoza Diván. Yasira Elisa Fabián Terreros. Martín González Ospina. Natalia Hurtado Díaz. Milagros Irurueta Lescano. Karen Conrad. Alondra Coren Escobar. Sofía Lechinsky. María Daniela Montero Díaz. Luz Monzón Egaña Adrogue. María Natalia Oviedo Rodríguez. Andrea Pareja López. Francisco Peláez Maciel. Magdalena Rormayer. Javier Andrés Ruiz Díaz. Alex Solé Louceiro. Y por último tenemos a Estefanía Ter Hark. I ara sí, us demano un altre fort aplaudiment per tots aquests graduats i graduades que han pujat a l'escenari. And finally, we will present the commemorative diplomas to the graduates of the Master's degree in European and Global Law. So for that, we ask to come to the stage to Ana Abashide. James Clisby Allison. Miss Aiden. Angelo Avalone. Pia Charlotte Biesel. Francesca Bonelli. Judith Burgraf. Artem Cherepanov. Angel Cody Damian. Alfred Benedict Poco Dislate. Victoria Fox. Valeria Fuentes Cordero. Ibrahim Haseinov. Thomas Jude. Tatia Kabuliani. Irina Kononova. Meriem Rua Coudry. Elisabetta Kuzovkina. Sebastian Losch. Caterina Macini. Sofia Marskaya. Laura Daniela Ramón Vera. Tobias Reinecke. Philip Reiser. Federica Restivo. Inés Sales Carvalho. Lucas Monte de Macedo Sampaio. That's a challenge. Jonasio Wilhelm Joseph Franz Siebold. Natalia Tsartsitnitska. Georgi Zablatske. Anabel Tucker. Igaz Aizayaz. Jolina Darlen Zajo. And now again, a big round of applause for all of them. So thank you so much for your comprehension and sorry if any name has not been said well. So, fins aquí l'entrega de diplomes commemoratius a tots els graduats i efectivament un fort aplaudiment per la doctora Elena Larrauri, coordinadora del Màster en Criminologia, el doctor Solanes Mullor, coordinador del Màster Avançat i doctora Lila Melón, coordinadora del Màster in European and Global Law. Bé, doncs, per fer la cloenda de l'acte, convidem de nou el doctor Ángel Rodrigo, professor del Departament de Dret de la Universitat Pompeu Fabra, que ens adreçarà unes paraules. Moltes gràcies, un fort aplaudiment per ell.
Estamos en los últimos momentos del acto y antes de cerrarlo me gustaría hacerles llegar dos mensajes. El primero es que ahora sois alumni UPF de la Universidad Pompeu Fabra y nos gustaría que sintierais esta condición como el orgullo de pertenecer a esta comunidad universitaria de la que habéis formado parte y de la que seguiréis formando parte. Habéis compartido esta experiencia universitaria en Barcelona y en la Universitat Pompeu Fabra. Lo habéis hecho con éxito. Os felicitamos y creemos que debéis estar orgullosos de vuestra experiencia y de formar parte de esta comunidad. El segundo mensaje es más bien una petición. Queremos que seáis nuestros embajadores. Cuando volváis a vuestros lugares de origen, estén en Cataluña, en España, en Europa, en América, en Asia o en otros lugares, les contéis a vuestros amigos, a vuestros familiares, a vuestros conocidos, que habéis estudiado un máster, vuestro máster, probablemente en la mejor universidad catalana y española. Os pedimos, por tanto, que seáis nuestros embajadores. Gracias por vuestra participación y por vuestra complicidad. Before closing this ceremony, I would like to send two messages. The first one is that now you are alumni UPF. We would like you to feel this condition as a pride of belonging of this university community. You have shared this university experience in Barcelona and at UPF, and you have done it successfully. We congratulate you and believe that you should be proud of your experience and of being part of this community. And finally, I would like to do a request. Be our ambassadors. When you return to your places of origin, whether in Catalonia, Spain, Europe, America, Asia, and others, tell your friends and family that you have studied your master's degree probably in the best Catalan and Spanish university. We demand you to be our ambassadors. Thank you for your participation and complicity.
Thank you very much for these words. Bien, este acto empieza a llegar a su final. Pero antes escuchemos todos juntos el himno universitario, el Gaudeamus Igitur, que interpretará el coro de la UPF, dirigido por Aida Vera. Por favor, pongámonos de pie para escucharlo. Gracias. Ara sí, hem arribat al final. La Universitat Pompeu Fabra us agraeix moltíssim la vostra assistència, de manera especial als qui heu sigut els protagonistes, els graduats i les graduades. Ens acomiadem també de les autoritats, famílies, amics i membres de la comunitat universitària aquí presents i també els que ens segueixen per internet. Per celebrar-ho i perquè és el que ens agrada fer a l'acabar un acte com aquest, és convidar-vos a pujar al pati de Jaume I a compartir una copa de cava tots junts. Per mi personalment ha estat un plaer estar avui aquest vespre amb vosaltres i aquí, el que ve a ser la meva universitat també. Per tant, moltíssimes gràcies, felicitats, bona sort a tothom i fins aviat. Moltes gràcies.